Welcome to Undercurrents of Romance, the show that celebrates every subgenre of romantic fiction. In each episode, I peel back the layers of your favorite love stories and chat with the talented authors who bring them to life. I'm your host, Tracey Devlyn. Now, let's dive in with today's guest. Hello, romantics. I'm here with USA Today bestseller Misty Evans to talk about her new romantic thriller, Redeeming Meg. Welcome to the show, Misty.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I
Oh,
feel really honored to be part of your new podcast, and it's
oh,
great. I've been watching some of the other authors who've been on it, and it's been really fun.
Oh, well, thank you. That means a lot, really. And I'm the one who's honored to have you here. I've been watching your career for years and years, and it's just so great to have you here with me and talking about your newest release. But before we get into Redeeming Meg, I have a question for you. It's a very important question, all right?
Okay.
So, which candle scent do you prefer? Secret Bookshop or lemon tarts and lime? Lies.
Well, funny you should ask because I
Oh,
just I
oh, you have
just
them.
poured
Great.
lemon tarts and alibis for my cozy mystery readers
That is hysterical.
under my Nix Hollywell pen name,
I
and
love
so I
those
have that.
tins. Those tins,
Yeah,
that's
aren't
like a
those pretty?
coppery color or something, or
It's
rose or
rose,
something.
yeah,
Okay.
it's rose gold, and I wanted something special. So most of the time my candles come in the silver. So this is Coffee
Yeah.
Shop. This is one of the author favorites. Everybody
Yeah.
loves Coffee Shop. Um, and then I also have reader candles like Happily Ever After
Those are super
and
cute.
Book Lover and One More Chapter. I have a bunch of those that I also sell. So
Yeah. Do you
I
have a
love them
favorite
all.
scent? Yeah, yeah, I know. It's like your kids. You can't really pick
Ah,
one, right? That's your favorite.
it is. It's really tough. This new pumpkin one is a pumpkin spice, pumpkins and
Yeah.
lies. That's another one of my Nyx ones. And oh, all year round, I love that pumpkin spice smell. Coffee shop is definitely one of my favorites. I don't know. I go through candles really fast and I love
Yeah.
all of them.
Same.
So,
Same. Yeah. No,
yeah.
when I was looking on your Facebook page and I saw that you made candles and everything, I'm like, I gotta ask her. But that's not all you do, based on some of the pictures. You're quite the crafter. You do mini journals and mood boards and all
Yeah.
sorts of cool stuff.
I I have always loved crafting, like writing, and it's just a different form of creativity for me, and it
Yeah.
helps me balance out the writing by still doing something creative, but that kind of feeds, a different part.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. Gives your brain a rest too, right? And not that there's not
yes,
many steps that you have to take to do some of these other creative endeavors, but there's something very draining on the brain after 4 or 5 hours of writing.
most definitely. And because storytelling for me is still a very visual thing, like I see the stories in my head as I'm writing. I know that I'm also very visual when it comes to a lot of my other crafting. So that's why I love doing junk journals and creating um, the candles. Even a lot of my candles will have special little extras, like I'll put glitter on top and little stars and
Yeah.
stuff like
Mhm.
that because I like that. So I know
Yeah.
that, some of the people who buy my candles, and also there are some authors who have me make them for them, for their books, for their book lines, and for their,
Ah,
like after their characters and after their
I
series and stuff.
did not
I've just
know
started
that.
getting into that. Yep, I do
Oh,
wholesale
cool.
candles and private label, and I make meditation candles for a yoga studio. I mean, there's a whole different
Yeah.
a level of creativity that goes into a lot of those kind of things, but I love all of it. And
Oh,
and
fun.
I'm very visual. I'm also very scent oriented, so I know how much it helps me to have that when I'm
Mm.
writing.
Hmm. Yeah, there is something really I don't know, welcoming, calming. I'm not really sure what the right word is, but the next morning whenever I come up to my office and I smell the scent of the candle that I had been burning the day before, it's just like,
Hmm.
it's just I'm back, I'm ready to
Yeah.
go. So yeah, I love that. I love that.
And
But
I think for me, it's part of my ritual. So I've got to have my tea, my coffee, whatever that is, but just lighting that candle. And I, a lot of times will put some kind of background sound on, like a YouTube video that's rain or
mhm,
the ocean or
mhm.
nature sounds or whatever. It's part of the ritual before I start writing. It
Yeah,
helps me,
yeah,
get
yeah.
into that mode.
Yeah, absolutely. I ask that question sometimes on the show, about rituals and triggers to get your mind into that creative space and things like that. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, today we are here to celebrate, as I mentioned, your newest release, Redeeming Meg, which you
Hmm.
co-wrote with your son Nolan. What can you tell us about the book and about that experience that with co-writing? I know this isn't your first time that you've co-written a book with other folks, but what was it like to write with Nolan?
So the boys, my twins, uh, have been on this journey with me since the beginning, since, I first decided to try to get published, which was way back before indie publishing. Back, it took me like 7 years from the time that I decided I wanted to get published to actually seeing that first book come out.
Yeah.
And they were with me on that journey. And it was in 2020 that I was thinking about my legacy with them, and not simply because they've both been such a part of it for so long. One of my sons
Hmm.
is a graphic designer. He does almost all of my covers. He did that cover. And they both
We'll hold it up
loved,
again so we can see the graphic design.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
great.
they both loved reading, and they both did a lot of writing throughout their school careers and stuff like that. So in 2020, I was thinking about my legacy. And I just put it out there to them and I said, if you ever want to co-write something with me, even a short story or whatever, I would love to do that. So they both were kind of like, hmm. And but it was Nolan who actually like sent me this whole big text about, he had this brainstorm and he wanted to write this spy novel, and he had some really great ideas. And I had been toying with the idea of the Black Swan division even back then. I just had not had time to dive into it and write it. And I do write a lot of espionage and spy books. That was my first published book, was Operation Sheba. And I did so much research on that after 9/11, because that was what really spurred me into wanting to become a published author. I was kind of like, it's now or never. Like that was a key turning point in my storytelling career, where I was like, I don't want to just write stories. I want to actually be published. So Operation Sheba was my first published book, and it was an espionage thriller. And so when he said that's what he wanted to write, and I had that idea for the Black Swan division that I'd been playing with for a while, I presented it to him and we started brainstorming, and it just, that's what you're holding, that's the
Yeah.
book, the first one that we worked on. It took a while because he has a full-time job, and my husband and I moved and during that time and everything. So it was hard for us to find times where we could write and edit and stuff, work together. But we were able to pull it off. And it is a family thing, with the cover, the story, all of it. And it's great because he actually, I was really surprised. Like the first few chapters that he wrote, I was like, this, you sound like me. Like, I mean, not exactly, but there
Hmm.
was so much promise there. And as we went back and forth and wrote more together, it just became so easy. I mean, to me, it felt easy. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
about him, but it was funny because right before I came on, he was texting me and saying, "I wish I could be there. I wish I could do it with you," and
Ah,
because he's at work, and
yeah.
but yeah, it's really cool to do it, and it does feel like a highlight of my career, and
Mm-hmm.
again because he was the catalyst really to get this series off the ground.
Yeah.
And then to also have his brother involved who did the covers for us, and the second book comes out in a couple weeks. So,
Yeah. Very cool.
yeah.
Well, I'm very interested in this black swan concept. So is that a real thing or
Yeah.
is it?
Yes.
Okay, tell us
Yeah.
about that.
So a black swan event is something like 9/11. So that is one of those things that had been in my head for a
Mhm.
long time. So it's something that is can possibly happen, and but it really isn't predictable. So like COVID, like a pandemic. Yes, we know that the conditions can be there and it could happen, but when it actually happens, a lot of times it happens unexpectedly, and
Yeah.
we look back and we think, "Oh yeah, we should have known that was going to happen." But the reality is that it takes us by surprise. So for the storyline, this group, this division within the CIA is sent in to handle Black Swan events where they have to be like a first responder almost, right? They have to be
Mhm.
ready to go at any moment and to handle extreme conditions. So in that book, it's there's a US embassy in Romania that's under siege, and there's some really important information that's hidden inside that
Mm.
embassy that they have to get in there and get their hands on. They're not going in to help control the mob or, some of
Yeah.
the other things, or save the people who are inside or any of that. They have one mission, and that's to get that information and get it back out of there. Because if that information does falls into the wrong hands, we're talking, a global scale um,
Event.
terrorist
Yeah.
yes, terrorist
Yeah.
event. So
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of high stakes.
Yeah, a lot of high stakes and you could feel it. You could feel it in the writing and it was and to some extent the characters now they're all professionals, they know what their mission is, they know that they need to get in and get out, but I there were a few areas where they struggled with that a little bit too, it seemed. And
Mhm.
so I thought that you did a great job showing that dynamic that yeah, you can be on mission, you know you're in there for one thing, but whenever you hear screaming and other types of concerning noises,
Right.
it's hard to stay focused on that one mission.
Focused. Right. Well, and I want the characters to be empathetic,
Hmm.
but to know the bottom line is that there are people in place who are there to help take care of, you know, the other people.
Yeah.
And if they don't perform their job, it's kind of the idea of, in the airplane when the air masks come down, you have to put yours on first.
Yeah.
So they have to take care of their mission first and foremost, or it won't matter who else they try to help while they're in that embassy, because it's going to be a moot point.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Now, did in the writing of this, did you take a particular character and Nolan would write a particular character? Is that how you did it?
Yeah, that's how it worked the best.
Yeah.
Initially, we were just going back and forth. So I was writing the Meg character, he was writing the Declan character.
Yeah.
And then it kind of evolved so that even when like it was my chapter, but they were having conversation, then he would go through it and sort of,
Mhm.
throw in like, I think maybe, he should say this or he shouldn't say that. And it was really good because I felt like it was very real because he was coming
Yeah.
from the male's point of view.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he was kind of like, I don't think he would say that, or
No,
he'd call
that's
me on it.
great.
And
Yeah,
I gotta be
yeah.
like, okay, all right, we can tweak that. And we had so much fun with the plot twists, especially in the one that's coming out this month. We came up with a whole list of plot twists for Tempting Tessa, and he picked out his two favorites, and I picked out mine, and we each had one that we agreed on. But then I was kind of like, well, I'm gonna pull rank here because we're gonna go with two different ones, and we're gonna go the second one. We're gonna combine these two plot twists, and the second one is my favorite. So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah. No, that's great. Now you had mentioned that you've been writing in this subgenre for quite a long time, and of course, you've done your own. You've written with coworkers. Our mutual buddy Adrian Giordano.
yeah,
You've written with
yeah,
her a romantic suspense series and a mystery series, I think. Uh,
yes.
what draws you to this subgenre again and again? Because you've done some other things too. You've done some paranormal type stories as well. But what
Hmm.
keeps bringing you back to this particular subgenre?
Well, so I love writing urban fantasy. I love writing my cozy mysteries. I almost always have, I feel like I have to have a mystery. And even with those other subgenres and other genres, subgenres, there's always some romance in my stories.
Yeah,
It may
yeah.
be a very small amount, or it might not get touched on as much throughout the storyline, but there's
Hmm.
always romance. I'm not sure I know how to write a story without
Yeah, same.
without some of that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And it's funny because Adrian and I were just on a call yesterday where we were plotting the book that we're working on right now in that mystery series, and just have so much fun. We just have so
Yeah,
much fun with it.
yeah,
I think, again, I love to write, and I found many genres that I enjoy writing as well as reading. But yeah, I kind of always like to have a mystery, and I kind of always love to have romance. I don't know that I can write anything without
hmm.
both. And I used to joke because I co-wrote a contemporary romance series with Nana Malone a long time ago, and unfortunately those books are not available at any retailers, but it was contemporary romance, and I was struggling because like I needed a dead body, and I needed,
Yeah,
I needed
yes,
more of a
yeah.
mystery, and that sort of thing. And I was like, maybe I'm not cut out to write contemporary romance, because the romance was there, but I still needed some more intrigue.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. I am the same way with my writing. I don't know if I could write a straight contemporary. I've never even tried it, so maybe I could, but I'd probably always want to be throwing some kind of, shadowy figure or something like
Yes,
that. Something.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And
Uh,
it's kind of that way with my cozy mysteries as Nick's Hollywell too, because um, it's tough for me to write a straight cozy, even if it's got the strong mystery,
mm,
because I'm always throwing a little romance in there, and I like to throw magic in. It's pretty soon it's a paranormal, and it's
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
That's just that's just how it goes.
yeah, well, you got to go with it, right? You got to go with it.
Right.
Uh, so one of the things that I like to dive into on this show is finding the story's undercurrent with the author. It's that second beating heart of the story that flows beneath the lover's journey. What do you think that the undercurrent is that's flowing beneath Meg and Declan's story?
I think there's several actually, which comes back to the theme of the book, which has a lot to do with loyalty,
Mm-hmm.
loyalty to them, to their to each other on their team, and loyalty to the CIA, and where that gets tested. Uh, what's happened before, the backstory for the story, is one of their teammates was killed, and they both feel guilty about it. Like they both feel responsible for
Yeah.
what happened, and it's kind of torn them apart, but it's also kind of an underlying thread that they share. and that they have to deal with in the
Yeah.
story, and confront each other, because there's a lot of blame and a lot of guilt, and that is definitely one of the underlying threads that they had to resolve.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Now, what I like to ask authors about their stories is tropes. You know, romance always has at least one, a lot of times numerous tropes involved in the story. Can you
Mhm.
think of tropes that readers could look forward to in Redeeming Meg? Any come?
Yes, whenever I plot out my books, because I'm a big plotter, even if it ends up going off script, I always start with the theme and the tropes. And so in June and December every year, I plot out the next, you know, 6 to 12 months of releases.
Ah,
I
yeah,
just take
nice.
that time,
Yeah.
and that's what I do. I don't write, I don't edit, I just do all the other stuff. I figure out the book's title, the blurb, the themes, the tropes for this series, because it's always action adventure. Whenever you're writing
Hmm.
spies, it's always the espionage angle. There's usually a military hero. The woman is in danger. Usually he is too. Oftentimes,
Hmm.
there's an equal amount for both of them. In this story, it was almost enemies to lovers, because
Yeah.
they did not, like Meg did not, she had quit the CIA. She didn't want to have anything to do with it. She was forced back into it. She blamed Declan for Jessica's death. She, she was ordered back into it and forced back into it, and was hoping to find redemption by completing this
Hmm.
mission. But she wanted to do it on her own. Like, she didn't
Yeah.
want the team there, because she didn't want that responsibility anymore. She was still trying to, still
Yeah.
struggling with this death. And Declan was forcing her to accept his help,
Yeah.
accept that they were partners, accept that it was really no one's fault about what happened with Jessica, even though he was taking it as much of the blame as he could. And he told her, like, I would always pick you to save in any
Hmm.
circumstance. And she can't deal with that. She's like, no, like, that's not right,
Yeah.
but they definitely had forced proximity. They had an enemies to lovers relationship. The wounded, they were wounded, not necessarily physically, but emotionally,
Hmm.
carrying all the guilt and everything.
Yeah.
And it's a second chance romance. And I tend to write those a lot. So a lot of my romances are that. That's one of my standards.
Yeah, yeah, very, very good. Have you read a romance book recently that you really loved and would recommend?
Oh my gosh. I typically love like a lot of action. So I read like Tony Anderson's Cold series. I really
Oh,
love
yeah.
all of those
Hmm.
books. So that's always one that I recommend if people ask. That whole
Okay.
series, like, there's not a bad story in the series.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Now, you recently hit a big milestone, your
Yes.
100th book, which is just blows my mind. It absolutely blows my
Yeah.
mind. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, it
Yeah.
was my urban fantasy and my Collie Sweet series came out last month, my 100th book. I was very, it was kind of surreal,
Yeah.
honestly. It still is kind of surreal. So I feel very humbled by the fact that I've had this amazing career already. I have no plans to stop. I have many, many books that aren't finished on my laptop. I have many more that I want to write. I will probably, die at my computer one of these days, because I'm still trying to, bang out the next story. It's just who I am.
Yeah.
Being a storyteller is who I am. And no, I never used a ghostwriter. I mean, like, these are all my books. Like, I've written all of them.
Mhm.
There's a few that are short stories, but the majority are full length novels. Like, I get I get asked that a lot, when I say
Mm-hmm.
I've written 100 books, they're like, "Oh, I bet they're novellas or something." And I'm like, "There's a few, but I've
Yeah.
poured my heart and soul into writing. It's really been my therapy through the years, and um, I don't I don't see myself ever stopping."
Yeah. Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that because you're an amazing writer, and these are
Thank you.
such fun, action-packed books, and very romantic for folks who like the romance. And I'm not going to ask you the question that I really want to ask about who wrote the love scene in here, you or your son. I'm not going to do that. But before we go, can you give us a hint of what's up next? It sounds like there's a book two in this series, in the
Yes.
Black Swan series, and that's coming out
Yes.
ASAP, right?
Right. So, Tempting Tessa comes out on March 25th, and then the third book, Avenging Jesse, comes out in the fall.
Okay.
And we're starting that real soon. I've been working on another urban fantasy that comes out in June, and that's in my Accidental Reaper series. That's what I'm
Yeah.
writing right now. I needed to take a little break.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I bet it's probably a nice palate cleanser for you where you can kind of go
It,
back, to say romantic suspense or mystery or whatever, and then do something a little
yeah,
bit more paranormal, otherworldly, that kind of thing.
yeah, definitely. And I have a cozy mystery that comes out in the beginning of May, and it's written, but it's like, it's so bad. I have so much editing to do.
They always are. They always
Yeah.
are. That's just how it works. No book
Yeah.
comes out great after, with the first draft. That's
I
for sure.
know. I'm kind of almost dreading it. A lot of times I love getting into the edits and really putting my mark on the book. So the first draft is always just whatever comes into my head and I write it down, and it is always really gnarly and blah. And then in the edits I can really, you know, I can really manipulate it, and it's like bread dough, and get it just right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's sometimes when I look at the draft and I'm like,
Gosh. I'm not in the right headspace for this today.
exactly,
All right.
exactly.
Well, folks, grab your copy of Redeeming Meg now so you can read it and be ready for Tempting Tessa's release on March 25th. You can check out Misty's website at mistyevansbook.com. Did I get that right? Mistyevans.com website?
It's
Okay,
mistyevansbooks.com. Yeah.
mistyevansbooks.com. Okay, great.
Yes.
And then what social media outlets are you the most active on?
I have a private Facebook group, but I also have a public author page. You can find me on there. I am also on Instagram. I'm on Substack, and I'm very active on there where I talk about a lot of times about being a writer and that sort of thing. So if you like that side of stuff
Mm-hmm.
more so than, actual promo of my books, Substack is the place for that. And I'm also on Blue Sky, but I'm not doing a whole lot on there just yet. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So I
oh,
think,
and I have a YouTube channel. So I like to
oh,
do
great.
trailers for my books and shorts for my books and stuff. So,
All right.
subscribe, like
She's
my
everywhere, folks.
YouTube channel.
She's
I know.
everywhere. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Well, Misty, thanks so much for joining me. I
Thank
really
you.
loved Redeeming Meg, and it was just great
Thank
chatting
you.
with you about it.
Yeah. Thank you again for having me. And good
You
luck with your podcast.
you
It's great.
betcha. Thank you. Well, it's a ton of fun. I'm really enjoying it. But thank you for being here and helping me work my way through this new venture for sure. And
Good.
congratulations again on your huge milestone. Just really happy for you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, many thanks to everyone listening. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Undercurrents of Romance. You can find more information about the show at traceydevlyn.com/podcast. Undercurrents of Romance is a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. I'll be back soon with another great romantic read. In the meantime, enjoy the adventure, everyone.